Good afternoon and welcome to the panel discussion of our conference. A successful development agenda requires inclusive partnerships at the global, regional, national, and local levels, built upon principles and values, and upon a shared vision and shared goals, placing people and the planet at the center. The topic for this panel discussion is how can educational institutions partner with other organizations for more efficient achievement of the SDGs. The theme has been framed by connecting two of the SDGs, quality education and partnership for the goals. We are pleased to have among us Dr. Moses as the moderator for the panel discussion. Dr. Moses is a multifaceted professional in the field of international education for almost 15 years, managing international baccalaureate schools as well as orchestrating business development and partnerships between universities and IB schools across India. He is on the IB Advisory Committee at the School of Education at Christ University and was also Associate Professor at the School of Education. He has been closely associated with Christ University for a decade for the job placement. Dr. Moses is the Academic Dean of the Global Resilience University for developing academic training programs in partnership with the United Nations Institute for Training and Research Institute, Switzerland. He is also Associate Director of the Global Challenges Forum Foundation and directly orchestrates UNSDG projects, youth leadership training, and global networks for the foundation. He works closely with the UN, Switzerland. He is the Regional Director for India for the Global Strategic Analysis on organization with headquarters based in San Francisco, USA. Dr. Moses has worked with five British and one American university and is an international representative of the Oral Roberts University, USA. He is well read, widely traveled, and qualified with a PhD in zoology. He has published and presented several research papers in circadian rhythms. His areas of interest are international partnerships, educational leadership, philosophy of IB theory of knowledge, and chronobiology of neuroscience. I would like to invite Dr. Moses to give his remarks about the topic and take over the panel discussion.
A very good evening and a warm welcome to all the participants and my greetings to our very distinguished panelists today. Thank you for organizing this, Dr. Sharon and Dr. Victor Paul from the Center for Social Action, Christ University. It is my privilege to talk to you about the introductory basis of what the Sustainable Developmental Goals of the United Nations are all about. Basically, these goals are to percolate a culture of understanding of global requirements, global projects, and the sustainability of various areas on the planet, including human resources, financial resources, and natural resources. So we are bringing up a topic that is going to generalize the necessity of the importance of human collaborations, institutional collaborations, for the sake of networking, to provide quality education, which is a very important requirement, particularly in our country. Now, in India, significant progress has been made in education provision by universalizing primary education and the improvement in enrollment and completion rates of girls and boys in primary and elementary school. The net enrollment ratio in primary education and tertiary education has been quite significant and has reached an all-time high in 2020. Now, the new National Education Policy in India and Sustainable Developmental Goal 4 share the goals of universal quality education provision and lifelong learning. With careful planning, our youth can be empowered to choose to undertake one of the Sustainable Developmental Goals as their life's calling, to boost skills and cooperative projects through their vocations, to ensure a better quality of life and an equitable society. So if you look at the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, the SSA, that is a part of the new National Educational Policy, it is aligned to the SDG targets. So today we are going to discuss on the various aspects of how quality education provision can be capitalized on in India with our fast growing, dynamic, cooperative society, and with all the work that is going on in collaboration with different countries, we want to see how educational institutions, academics, intellectuals, and students work together to promote quality education at primary, secondary, and now tertiary sector. So looking at our distinguished panelists, I would like to first introduce Dr. Vasudeva Sharma. He's going to be our first panelist, and I'll open it up after I introduce him. Thereafter, I will introduce the other panelists before they speak. So Mr. Vasudev Sharma is the executive director and one of the founders of Child Rights Trust, an organization working towards upholding every right for every child. He is a core team member of the CACL campaign against child labor. He has worked with NGOs, government, international organizations, and universities while engaging in research, advocacy, lobbying, and capacity building exercises to spread awareness about child rights and implementation of the same. As a consultant to UNICEF and the government of Karnataka, Mr. Sharma has coordinated the development of SPAC State Plan for Action for Children and the State Plan of Action for Prevention of Trafficking of Women and Children. He is now the president of the Karnataka Association of Professional Social Workers. He is also a recipient of the Karnataka Child State Welfare Award, Karnataka Balash Viksha Award, and there are several developmental and journalism awards he has won. Currently, along with the CRT team, he conducts a series of programs and studies on the national policy of children and the implementation of the SDG goals in Karnataka. So some of the projects he has conducted are Sati Railway Children's Project, Sneha Education Project, and study on the situation of ICDs in a restructured form, and many more. So over to you, Mr. Sharma. I request you to please speak on this, and then I will introduce the other panelists when they have to speak. Over to you, sir.
Thanks to you, and thanks to all the organizers, and particularly the Christ deemed to be university. This is an issue or a topic which all of us have to be aware of. SDGs have come to stay. I have titled my discussion as an opportunity to be part of the history. When we say how education institutions partner with the organizations for more efficient achievement of SDGs. What I have tried to do is only look at the partnerships and the need for it. 1 + 1 is 2. This is what taught to us from our school days. It is 2, whether counted by mathematicians or an accountant or a statistician or a scientist or even by a primary school student. But SDG is asking us to take a different outlook at this equation. It is asking us to redefine the synergy. I know we cannot defy mathematical theories and applications. 1 + 1 is always 2, but is it possible to see 2 and more groups and forces coming together to multiply the effects? Although we say plus coming together, it is telling instead of a plus, you put a into, rather multiply it. This is what SDG is looking at us to achieve in the 17th SDG or 17th goal, partnerships for the goals. Strengthen the means of implementation and revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. Let us see why global. Let us start talking about local partnerships to begin with. To realize the 16 goals of SDGs, whether it is to end poverty or achieve health, end discrimination, or succeed in educating all and safeguarding the environment both on land and the seas, it is inevitable to join hands, partner, and multiply our energies and forces. Partnership calls for mutual benefit. One need not have to join other person for no results or no benefit. Join hands. Yes, let us reap benefits, but in what way is the question. In the context of SDGs, this partnership is to share resources in the form of knowledge, technology, finance, and supporting each other in times of crisis and humanitarian energies, etc. It also indicates that this partnership to be mooted by the government or the state to encourage non-government bodies to collaborate to achieve SDGs. Yes, everywhere in the SDG it talks about government, that is the state, and also non-government bodies. It is not always non-government organization, but also industries, business, media, education institutions, etc. We are in a situation where we just cannot afford to be all alone in a movement for development. But unfortunately, the world over, there is growing forces that are interested in dividing people based on religion, caste, language, ethnicity, political agenda, and race. At the same time, ideas and concepts such as SDGs are taking bold stands to reunite and revitalize the communities to join hands and partner for development. So, the required way forward is developing partnerships with various individuals, publics, groups around us, groups around issues, ideas, and causes. Yes, of course, the essence of non-governmental organizations is partnership. Today, this partnership is required for everyone, including education institutions and particularly large institutions like universities. But the question is, partnering with whom? With whom we can join hands? Who is ready to join hands? Or who is capable of joining hands? In a simple outlook or response to this is we need to partner with those who are willing to align with SDGs and us, rather SDGs and you, even if they have to be educated about the commitments that they are entering into. Some people may enter into partnership without knowing what is stored for them, what is their responsibility, what they are supposed to do. They may not be knowing, but they may enter into partnership. This could be other education institutions, NGOs, industries, service providers, government, or media. With respect to education institutions, it needs to be a win-win relationship as you are nurturing, growing, and developing minds for stepping out to take care of this world. Repositioning ourselves in the new situation, locally and then globally, and within our own institutions or within our own institutions of any nature. Now, first of all, we need to network locally within the organizations, within the universities, within the education institutions. So that's why I mean here of any nature, academic, NGO, private industry, business, media, government, or political parties, or local and global associations. Repositioning while aligning to the SDGs and its targets is the need of the time. The current need is to align with some of the low-hanging targets or fruits which we can attempt to reach them and achieve them, such as developing policies to end discrimination, minimum and decent wages, measures to prevent wastages, and indiscriminate and abuse of plastic that harm the environment, protect water bodies, protect girls, women, and children, and ending all kinds of corruption within the organizations and with the relationship with others, etc. And practice the same starting from our own institutions. The education institutions now should take a lead in inviting experts from the larger societies to share the knowledge and adopt the same while acknowledging them. This is the time to buy such expertise in with a positive note and also be prepared to share our own knowledge and expertise with the needy. SDGs in its various goals is explicitly requesting education institutions for the following. 1. Educate to raise awareness by integrating SDG issues in academics. Extend and reach out to develop partnerships within and outside. invite government and private bodies to the education institutions for interaction with the students and teaching faculty. And one more, encourage students to take projects within and outside the institutions with respect to SDGs. I like the way our moderator mentioned that encourage students to take up one SDG and inculcate in their life, in their body, in their mission of their life. Education institutions are at the best position to reap the opportunities that are listed and provided by SDGs. Education institutions can play all the three roles either in steps or simultaneously to transform the communities around them in the time-tested three spheres. I'm quoting here, I'm using the three spheres put forward by Darren Stibbe and Stuart Reed and Julia Gilbert in 2018. The three steps they're talking about are leverage, exchange. One partner contributes to the work of another. Our partners exchange resources to allow one or both partners to deliver more. In the context of education institutions, opening up for the communities around them to utilize the knowledge, services, or manpower to address some very important issues. For example, opening up of the playgrounds and libraries for the children around them, for the youth around them. Second, combine or integrate. Two or more partners combine their resources together to deliver more than each could deliver alone. This is the synergy. This is what SDG is telling. 1 plus 1 is not 2 plus 1 plus 1 is something more like them. Identifying the service providers or operators in the communities, encouraging them to utilize their maximum energy and resources to achieve their own targets while utilizing some resources and knowledge experiences of the education institutions. For example, 100% immunization, adult literacy, basic facilities for women and girls, including protection, waste management, and protecting water bodies. The last one, transform. Multiple actors work together through collective action to tackle complex challenges, usually through systemic transformation. Education institutions taking lead in bringing together several resources, forces to collaborate under common agenda to address major policy issues. This is a tough call, but it has to be done. For example, skill building, preventing human trafficking, ending child marriages, etc., in the areas where they are operating. Finally, achieving partnering. I have a few points to share on that. One, each institution has to rewrite SDGs and its targets, keeping in mind their own business and activities. For an education institution, certainly we can rewrite the SDGs, keeping in mind our own operations, our own area of work, and share it with others. Each department can look at the SDGs for shorter period and targets to be achieved. For example, 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year, and revisit their own target once in a year and revise the same for higher targets to be achieved while keeping the SDG perspective. Why I say this? Because the turnover of students is once in a year. They move to the next class, a new batch will come. So the old batch will go out. So for every year, we can discover having projects and writing SDG goals for our own purposes. Second, intertwine SDGs into the syllabus of the academics. One need not have to rewrite the syllabus for this, and you need not have to conduct a special class for the same or a course for this, but orient the teachers about SDGs, and while giving examples and quoting issues on any subject, in any subject, arts, commerce, social work, language, management, sciences, sports, and culture, etc., draw parallels from the local newspaper reports, local developments, local NGO experiences, UN documents, and personal experiences with SDG issues. Organizations to revisit their own mission and policies with respect to use of land, water, electricity, buildings, and green cover, sewage and waste management, etc., and practice before preaching students and the communities on the same. Well, we all talk a lot, we all preach a lot, we all come out with a lot of theories, but are we practicing it? Some of the ideas which we are supposed to tell others, why don't we apply? And if you're doing it, fantastic, let us celebrate it, let us showcase it. Well, thinking through to develop topics for research, assignments, and fieldwork, link them to the SDG issues, and encourage students to be critical, self and others, and work with local NGOs, local government, and local industries and service providers. When I say local government, it includes corporations and gram panchayats. Entering into MOUs with the local governments at various levels to assist in review and monitoring of activities, programs, etc., from SDG perspective, with appropriate data and analysis of the same. One of the biggest weakling or failure in our society, in our administration, etc., is the way we manage data, the way we get data and analyze the same. So in education institutions can play a fantastic role by bringing in data and analyzing them, helping them in that. This can happen at micro level, one ward or one community settlement, or even one section of the society. Finally, taking up the role of knowledge partners with government and NGOs or industries to develop modules and train or facilitate awareness development activities, and later moving towards assisting in monitoring and evaluation of the SDG goals locally. In the light of SDGs, it's a great opportunity before us to be part of the history. Partnering to achieve the goals will certainly leave a mark of our effort in the history, striving to make our surroundings more humane, tolerant, and of course to develop together. This kind of an experience to students who undergo this program will certainly help them to be more effective contributors towards developing this world and of course achieving the SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. We'll come back to you, sir, Mr. Sharma. So I appreciate your views on it. And we will have the next panelist, a very distinguished gentleman also. Dr. Bobby Joseph is a professor, Department of Community Health, head at the St. John's Medical College and Hospital. He started his medical career as a student of St. John's Medical College in the year 1984. He's also the vice dean of community outreach and distance education at his alma mater. With his feet firmly grounded in community health, his area of focus has been the health of workers or the subspecialty of occupational health. He has won several awards in this field at the state and national level in appreciation of his work in improving the health of occupational groups. He has a long association with the plantation and apparel functioning and in the manufacturing industry. He heads the Division of Occupational Health Services at St. John's Medical College. He is currently editor-in-chief of the Indian Journal of Occupational and Environmental Medicine. He's an avid sports person with a serious interest in field hockey. He was the coach and manager of the Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences hockey team and a member of the university's board of sports. Although his work takes him to many parts of the world, his roots are very much in Bangalore, where he lives with his wife and 2 children. So thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Bobby Joseph. It is my privilege to welcome you and introduce you. Over to you to describe the concept of quality education as part of the SDG.
Thank you very much, Dr. Moses. I just want to clarify whether I'm very clear. Is it clear enough? Is it okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Great. So thank you once again, Dr. Moses. Thank you also to Dr. Victor Paul and to Dr. Sharon. I didn't know her name was Dr. Sharon because the email says Dr. Balarvati. So anyway, thank you very much to all of you all for inviting me here. It's my privilege to be with the Christ University at this point of time, and my privilege to share the stage with Dr. Vasudev Sharma, and Dr. Hemalata. I just have a very short presentation. I'll be speaking more from my heart than what exactly is going to be is written on the slides itself. Can I have the next slide, please? So first of all, congratulations to Christ deemed to be university on becoming a member of the UN board that works towards achieving the sustainable goals. It's something I didn't know about. I must say that I'm ashamed to say that because my son used to study in Christ University and my daughter is studying there now. So at the same time, it's a matter of pride that they are in an institution which is on the board of the UN fund. So the next slide, actually, just to put things in perspective, more as a reminder for me as a teacher about what the 17 Sustainable Development Goals are. The next slide, please. So I think we skipped actually we skipped 2 slides. But that's okay, no problem. I think when the students spoke to me, when Janvi and the students spoke to me, they asked me to focus on quality education and the partnerships for the goals. And I fully agree with what Dr. Vasudev Sharma has been mentioning, that these are low-hanging fruit. The possibility of us combining quality education with the possibility of partnering with local organizations to achieve these sustainable goals is something which is very, very achievable. And I will be giving you the example from Christ University itself, and an example of what we have done or tried to do with Christ University. Obviously, being in a medical college and aligned to the Department of Community Health, we are focused on the prevention of communicable diseases and also the prevention of problems among children and women, which, of course, you can see here as one of the objectives or the primary focuses of the CSA movement. We've had the honor of collaborating with CSA, and I think which is what Dr. Vasudev was referring to, looking for local partners who would help in achieving some of the objectives of the CSA itself. So you can see actually that I was quite surprised when I looked up the website of the CSA or the Christ University portal to find some of my students featured there. You can see 2 doctors there. The picture in the red towards the right side are 2 of my former postgraduates who are helping with the medical checkup in the urban slum where the CSA works. And at the bottom here is again one of my students, Dr. Jerry, who's now with the emergency medicine department, who also participated in this program. I understand that he's quite closely associated with the Christ University, being an alumnus of the same college. So can I have the next slide, please? So I've just tried to list some of the activities which are necessary for ensuring that we are able to achieve these sustainable development goals. And I can see that the Center for Social Action is well informed, but I guess the students have to be informed as well. And in fact, as Dr. Vasudev was saying, I think it's probably also the teachers who have to be oriented towards the sustainable development goals. I'm not too sure about Christ College, but I can definitely say that other than for the Department of Community Health here in St. John's, I really wonder how many other departments within our institution, being a medical institution, are actually familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals. I would hazard a guess and say that this is the same situation in most educational institutions. I like the fact that CSA has got the objective of ensuring that there is some degree of empathy which the students are supposed to adopt, and that is where I think the challenge of the educational institution is. So just to give you an idea of what I would think is a way forward, I think just like CSA has identified the Lakshman Rao Nagar and Rajendra Nagar an underprivileged area as this geographical area where they're going to work with. I think it's imperative that educational institutions, large educational institutions deemed to be universities such as Christ College or Christ University, identify a specific geographical area where they can act in. And having identified that specific geographical area, I think the issues related to SDGs have to be identified therein. The problem with the 16 most important SDGs are that they are very, very varied. And I know that an institution such as Christ University has got the wherewithal, given the large number of students, the large number of faculty, and the variety of courses that you run. I'm sure that an organization such as Christ University has the wherewithal to identify different SDGs and try to focus on them. But having said that, an institution such as which is dedicated to, let's say, the medical field or to the engineering field, the list of priorities, though they can be quite tangential, it is difficult for some of these organizations to work with some of the SDGs, given that their area of specialty is different. Having said this, let me give you the example, a recent example which we had, where a prominent engineering college in Tamil Nadu wanted to collaborate with St. John's in developing an artificial intelligence module for identifying COVID-19 even before the patient comes into the hospital. But these are examples of where good health and well-being probably transcends into other fields as well, such as the field of engineering, and it is possible to collaborate with other organizations in achieving some of the SDGs at least. Now, going back to my slide there, after having identified the issues with the SDGs, I think it's important for us to prioritize and decide which are those one or two or maybe five at the most SDGs which that institution is going to take in. Thereafter, identifying suitable partners in the area. Like I said, I think our department was privileged to be associated with the Center for Social Action and work a little bit with the women and children in the underprivileged area, which was chosen by them, which incidentally also seemed to merge with the underprivileged area which our department works with. So having identified suitable partners in the area, I guess the objective would then be to work towards a common goal. These are just some of my simple thoughts with regards to how I think educational institutions such as Christ University and others can work towards achieving the sustainable development goals. I think the first point which I've listed there is probably the most important. The rest are more or less intuitive. I think the challenge would be to inform students. I just ran a very random quiz among a handful of my students, and I was surprised that about half of them hadn't heard about the SDGs. And therefore, it's important that students also are informed about that and make that change from them from being just passive listeners to having some empathy for the world around us. And that important step will then lead on to the others, which are more or less intuitive. So once again, I'm looking forward to the discussion ahead. Dr. Moses, I'm sure, will lead us through a very fruitful discussion. These are just my starting points, and I do hope we will be having a more thorough interaction in the next couple of minutes. Thank you very much, Dr. Moses, and thank you very much to Christ University and Dr. Victor Paul and Dr. Sharon.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bobby. I enjoyed that presentation. It was very apt, very relevant in today's times as we all collaboratively work together to promote the concept of quality education and whatever it means to people. And once they find the truth, I think, this concept of quality will really be enlightening their minds. Now we will get in and look at our third panelists before we have a group discussion, and we will look at how we can have question answers from some of our panelists. So a very warm greeting to Dr. Hemalata, who is the Associate Professor of the School of Social Sciences, Sociology and Social Work at Christ University. She has attended various sessions as chair in the institution. She chaired a group discussions on social work, education, and practices in human resources as a professional at state level in the colloquium on the status work, education, and practices at Karnataka. She has been a resource person at Christu Jayanti College and also chaired a session on sexuality and reproductive health of women at the National Conference of Women's Psychology, Rediscovery of Women's Psychology, Changing Roles and Challenges at the Christ University. She has been a resource person at various seminars and NGO sectors, the Baldwin Wallace College, OIAS, Christ University. Along with this, she was also a coordinator for the refresher courses for social sciences, and she has been a part of several conferences ranging from national to international level. She has published papers, and she has also been participating in South Asia in Transitioning with the 6th National Peace Convention and 25th International Summit on Child's Rights. concept of education matters life, and much more. Some of the research projects that she has worked on are continuing education for disadvantaged adolescents in South Asia, welfare needs of survivors of human trafficking, talking about a multi-stakeholder approach. So I welcome you, ma'am. Warm greetings to you, and I request you, Dr. Hemlata, to share your ideas and viewpoints on why quality education is so important and why collaborations within the fraternity of academia is so essential in today's world.
Thank you, Dr. Moses. Thanks for that introduction. I would also like to begin by thanking all the officials of the Center for Social Action, Professor Victor Paul in particular, Dr. Sharon, and of course the several other organizers of this conference. Right, I heard the different topics that the students have been presenting about the SDGs the past 2 days and the various areas that they've covered. So I would probably tell Dr. Bobby that several of our students are quite equipped with the knowledge of the SDGs. Very interesting papers they have been presenting, and I heard about that. So very nice to be part of this session where we are looking at partnerships, higher education institutions, and the importance of building partnership in the arena of SDGs. Dr. Valarmati, you'll be presenting here. Being an academician and being a researcher as well, my study is a bit more formal. I come from academics. So I have just titled my presentation exactly the way CSA sent me, how they wanted me to look at the issue of the partnerships that higher education institutions could build with other organizations in order to achieve the SDGs. So if I can go into the presentation, this is a slide probably from the past 2 days. Most of you have seen that we are somewhere right in the middle of this whole process when the world decided to set for itself an agenda towards development. So we passed through the Millennium Development Goals, and we decided in 2015, as we were looking at how much progress we had made, we realized that we had to take it further, and we had to factor in several other issues that were important for this world. So 2015, we embarked on another slightly large agenda, which we are calling the Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 of them, we know. And of course, central to what we are seeing is the partnerships that we need to build with everybody in order to realize these goals. Dr. Valarmati, the next slide. Again, an introductory slide that I wanted to bring to all of you. This very important agenda, very ambitious agenda, which is what makes it so important for almost every one of us to be within the loop for achieving these. Very ambitious to bring about these many changes with its around 169 targets that have been set to be achieved by the year 2030. So, and we are looking at some of the most challenging, pressing, important targets that is going to change the face of this earth, and where we factor in things like inclusion, social justice, and of course, social and sustainable development. Next slide, please. Dr. Valarmati, next slide. We do know, I'm still going into some of the introductory aspects of the 17 SDGs that we are talking about. Most of them also belong to the Millennium Development Goals, but we realized some time ago in 2015, when we were doing reviews and researchers were looking at whether we have succeeded in making the changes, we realized that we had left out several areas, and those were factored in. For example, the onus that we are giving to climate change, the onus that is being given to sustainable consumption, and of course, the other important aspects of peace and justice, all of which has been factored into the present set of goals. So in 2015, when researchers started looking at how we were achieving the different goals, a very important observation came in that without multi-stakeholder partners and partnerships between the different agencies that my earlier speakers were referring to, there was no way of succeeding in achieving these kinds of goals. So researchers let the world know that we have to make certain very concentrated efforts to build these partnerships. And the 17th goal itself is about building partnership, where we even work with partners who are not as strong as we are. The partners themselves would be NGOs and other organizations with whom we work and build their capacities in order to achieve the SDGs. So that was the whole agenda when we started this in 2015. And now 2020, we are somewhere there. We are somewhere halfway through the process of achieving these goals. Now, one of the things that we realized when we were studying the SDGs was that it is very, very important in the process of achieving these goals that the awareness and knowledge is shared to everybody on this globe, as well as building the capacities in different sectors so that we are able to achieve these targets. Therein comes the importance of the education sector, like Christ University, as well as other institutions of higher education. That key to the achievement of the goals is the creation of sufficient awareness and the knowledge about the goals, as well as building the capacities of people, which universities are very well capable of doing. Next slide, please. So across the globe, all the universities, when they started looking at the SDGs, they did, of course, were focusing on the SDG 4, which is about quality education, and aligning the other SDGs apart from the fourth goal with the strategies of the universities themselves. And all the universities agreed you would find that in different websites that they would share the knowledge, create the awareness, they will build the awareness about the SDGs within their universities, as well as work with the outside communities. So it was also found that several of the SDGs are part of university curricula. In Christ University, I can think of any number of our departments which are looking at these goals and incorporating them into the curricula, whether it is the pure sciences or the management sciences. And universities have also decided that they would encourage research on various themes under the SDGs. Right? These were some of the decisions that the higher education institutions made. Quite apart from that, we would also recognize that the higher education institutions are a very important part of what is called as the Sustainable Development Solutions Network that the world is working with. So there is now, as part of as part of this network, we realize that the universities have the very important task of creating awareness and building the skill sets in the various sectors so that within the next 10 years, we should be able to achieve this deadline. At least we achieve the major aspects for which we have started this work. And the need is becoming more and more urgent, which is why I would believe that institutions like ours, the Christ University, where we are creating these kinds of opportunities, that we would build the necessary skills and the mindset in our student community. So the present year being more important for us, the COVID year, where probably we may have walked a few steps backwards on this, achieving these goals. Almost every sector has been so badly impacted that we have to again regroup ourselves to move forward. And the plank of, I would say, inclusion, in the plank of taking every one of us together so that nobody is left behind, and we carry these agenda forward. So therein we state the SDG 4.7 in particular says that this is the time where we have to help young people to acquire the knowledge, to acquire the skills, to acquire the mindset, to promote these, and very importantly, education for sustainable development, as well as to guide young people, especially people part of universities, into leading a very sustainable lifestyle. Now, that is something that we have heard in this COVID time, that every one of us better start adapting a sustainable lifestyle. So universities now, we know, are the most crucial partners in this, because the higher education institutions have the capacities to incubate important ideas and also to create solutions to global problems. So as researchers, research being a very important aim of all institutions of higher education, we will be able to create, design, as well as test solutions so that we will be able to take the agenda forward. And we also have the capacity to bring in, to create important partnerships within the network so that greater positive impact is possible in the achievement of this goal. Next slide. So I'm just bringing in one important study that took place 2 years ago. This was part of a study that was done by PRIA, which is the Participatory Research in Asia Institution that is in New Delhi. It is headed by Professor Tandon, who's been a visitor, a well-wisher of Christ University, and he was also discussing several of these issues when he was with us last year. So in this survey that this institution carried out with their partners, around 180 partners, what you're seeing on these slides are important people whom they thought would have the key role in bringing about changes in society, in the transformation that Vasu was talking about. All this is possible when these kinds of stakeholders come together. And the paper, actually, a very important paper that Professor Tandon has written of how we can bring all of these stakeholders together at different stages and create the synergy, again, what Vasu was talking about, in order to implement and strengthen these partnerships. Next slide, please. Again, then in the same paper, when they are listing out the important role that higher education institutions can play, there are 4 clear roles for the education institution. One, of course, is research, as I've been telling. Solutions to problem is always created through research, and there it is, interdisciplinary as well as transdisciplinary research that could be done to create local solutions, create solutions in smaller communities so that all of us can go together to create that large change that we are looking at. So we have to develop these kinds of research possibilities and offer it to the communities. And as we were telling, the primary goal of higher education institution itself is education, one in the creation of awareness, as well as in the capacity building and the mobilization of young people. Now, the youth community and mobilizing them would be a very important way in which we create awareness as well as bring about change in society. Universities also have this very important role of being external leaders in this public engagement and creation of creators of different cross-sectoral dialogues and action groups. We are very important in the advocacy area, where we would advocate for the important role of higher education institutions as well as in the commitment that we have towards the SDGs. And this is also something that lately we have realized that every university, in all of its operations as well as in its governance, the SDGs are being factored in, that there is an alignment with the SDGs in the universities, and all the students are sensitized and energized about the need for understanding the SDGs. And as well, I would be talking about it in the end as well. All universities today are required to report about what changes we are making in the area of the SDGs. So the education sector itself is today committed to this whole idea of creating a cross-cutting skill sets and the key competencies that are required by communities, whether to their own students as well as people in the community, our outreach, our extension activities, of our connections with the NGO sector, wherever it is, we have to create these skill sets and the competencies. Of course, universities are bound to develop the profession-based specific skill sets and knowledge. So the green-based technologies that a civil engineer develops, or the green content in a chemical engineer's work, or what the chemistry or a physics department does, the social work, sociology department does, or even what the lawyers do, the specific knowledge that is required in order to bring about changes and to implement the various SDGs and to achieve the different targets. We also are in this key position to bring about change, to develop the mindsets of the young people, as well as to make use of the agency of the students in order to bring about change in society and the networks that society, universities are able to create. So all of these things have been identified as the most important, I would say, contribution of the education sector. And as I was wondering how I would probably focus on what would be the different models that universities have been using, I found this interesting case study, which is called as the Sustainability Boot Camp that the Western Sydney University has written about. Now, what do? They create this partnership pedagogy approach when they start this work of sensitizing and energizing their own students. So academicians and the NGO people, the professional staff, the student interns, all of them go together in creating these podcasts where the student community understands the SDGs, the important worldviews that are necessary for the student community, and the systems awareness, systems thinking that students need to have. So the student community also is exposed at a disciplinary level as well as a personal level. Vasu made this, I think Dr. Moses was also talking about it, where each student is supposed to adapt one of these goals as a life mission. So important. So all of these things, the Western Sydney University created in the student community. They created the awareness as well as the need to internalize all of these goals. And they were also, all the students were linked to local initiatives and the local community groups where a lot of change was possible. So this is a very interesting case study that came about. Probably all institutions of higher education can, develop these kinds of models and put it up so that the world understands the key role that university has and how it brings all of the other partners together. So we know of the several public events that universities can conduct, its direct outreach with the communities. The several things that you're doing right now, you are part of a conference, which is so important, that we are understanding the SDGs. At least I see around 85 participants. I would believe that at least 60, 65 of you have today a very in-depth understanding, knowledge about the SDGs. You have ideas. You have developed these ideas through these various forums that Christ University creates for you, through the service learning, where you connect with other NGOs, where you connect with communities, you connect with other students to develop projects in order to reach the several goals in the pathway towards achieving the various goals. Dr. Valarmati, the next slide, please. How do we maximize, now that we have done so much, that we have been on, organizing conferences, we've been doing so many things. Are there further ways to maximize these impacts? The next slide that I have will talk to you about what Vasu was also referring to you about. This is the United Nations, they created this model of a partnership spectrum, where they talk about the initial stages where the university will contribute directly to the work of others. We collaborate with others. We exchange the resources that we have with all the other players, whether we are talking about NGOs or municipal corporations or village panchayats or whichever, and the reciprocal exchange of skills, knowledge, as well as funding. This is what the UN is actually visualizing, how these partnerships can be built. And of course, we integrate and combine. This is a co-creation, the co-generation, the mutual accountability that is created in the partnerships, and the several other innovative approaches, that synergy and other things that comes into being when we take these partnerships forward. And of course, what the world wants, at the very end, in these partnerships, you would actually arrive where you would be able to transform multiple factors that come together in order to tackle these challenges through the system transformation process. We may be, by the year 2030, able to achieve a large part of the targets we have set out for. And importantly, for institutions like Christ University, when we actually operationalize all of these kinds of partnerships, it is a huge enhancement of the organizational values and the mission values that we stand for. All of us here know that service is the most important value for us. So that would be a very important value add for all of us. In the beginning, I was talking about successful partnerships would only happen when we are able to work not only with organizations, well-established organizations. The Child Rights Trust is there, well-known, the best-known charitable hospital, St. John's, is there, already there. But we should also be able to work with the lesser-powered partners. Several of them who do not have the capacities, who cannot really work at the scale which is required to bring about the actual change. One of the roles that all of us have is to work with partners who do not have the kind of power that some of us have. So the multi-party, the multi-level, and the multi-institutional partnerships would create very successful partnerships that the world is looking out for. The next slide, Dr. Valarmati. So we would say it's almost a concluding slide that I'm telling. All institutions of higher education are intellectually as well as financially, we have huge power. And the student power that we have, the intellectual strengths that we have in order to propel the pathway becomes very important. And then the leadership within the higher education institutions. Right now, we are seeing the leadership that Center for Social Action has taken in bringing about this very important change in the Christ University of making the Sustainable Development Goals as a very important plank in the many achievements towards which the university is moving. Can I have my last slide, please? This is something that I wanted to talk to you about. All of the universities in the globe are being, ranked based on how we contribute to the sustainable development goals. How we go about, how we build the partnerships. So the Christ University, I would be very, very proud to say, that is making, all efforts now to present data relating to these 4 goals. We have made a lot of gains in these, achieving some of these goals: quality education, gender equality, sanitation, clean water, and of course, partnerships, which the university is very famous for. we are also discussing about that, bringing in different partners, working with us in order to achieve these goals. We hope to also bring in several other goals in future. And the next 10 years, we should be able to achieve much more than what we are doing at present in creating partnerships as well as meeting the various goals that are set out for all of us on this globe. So that would be my presentation. As I said, it would be more theoretical. Being an academician, I have to bring in the theory related to it and how the world sees it and the practices that are found across the globe. Let me close by thanking the organizers for giving an opportunity. And if there is time for a discussion, I would love to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hemalata. Really appreciate it. And in conclusion, I'd just like to inform you that India has made considerable progress on the concept of education. And as a country, we now have a population of 1.3 billion people, and almost 50% of the country's population is at 29 years of age at an average. So there is tremendous opportunity to reach out to educate our population and look at how we can develop these partnerships and collaborations between schools, colleges, and universities in order to make people aware of what education is. Education is not just preparation for life. Education is life itself. It is so critical and invaluable that these goals are being promoted in order for us to be enlightened and aware and situationally positioned in order to make our lives more respectable, transform our communities around us. So thank you for being your audience. Now we've been doing all the talking. Our distinguished panelists have added a lot of flavor for you to understand the concept of why partnerships are important and why education is important for those partnerships. So at this point in time, I request you all to unmute and ask questions. Dr. Sharon, they are welcome to ask questions or even put out questions in the chat box. And then we can have our panelists answering some of these questions. You can either in the chat box any questions regarding quality education or partnerships or any queries, clarifications that you may seek to have. Please do participate. We'll give you about 10-15 minutes for a question answer session before we close. Anyone from the student representative community? So Dr. Sharon, do you have any queries or any questions that you may want to ask our panelists, the students? I don't think anyone has typed in any questions. And
only enable chat options for the students in order to,
I do think they should participate. So how do we do that? I mean, are they going to be?
If anybody is interested, we can unmute them, sir. Anybody has a question, they can raise hands and I can unmute them.
Please raise your hands.
There is a Q&A box as well as a chat box open to them.
Okay. Or you can just type in your messages. I will read out the questions to our panelists. Alternatively, I'll ask the panelists some questions. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, sir. I have a question. So it was mentioned that, every person can adopt one SDG as their life goal and, work on that. So I was very attracted to that idea. And I was wondering if you, sir, or any of the panelists have any insights on how an individual could work on achieving these SDGs from a grassroots level.
I'd request Dr. Bobby to please answer that question, sir.
With reference to good health and well-being, I guess if you look at individuals who are interested in health, even if you're not from an institution which is dealing with health, like a medical college or a nursing college or an institution of paramedical sciences, I think the opportunity is clearly there. For example, I know of individuals who have undertaken the need to improve the health of children who are going to an Anganwadi. And they contribute time to going there, making sure that they at least ensure that the children are healthy and the roles of the Anganwadi are fulfilled. and they contribute both financially as well as by, more importantly, by giving their time to ensure that the children are growing well. So it may not make a world of a change and result in something which is going to change all over the city or all over the country, but at least the person goes back with the satisfaction that they have done something to improve the quality of life of those children there. Now, that's just a small example which I've seen from my own experience working with the communities where individuals have contributed to improving the health of the lesser privileged. So I guess that's one way of going about it. And I'm sure such examples exist in where all the other SDGs are concerned as well. Even if you take, for example, zero hunger, or if you take, for example, reducing inequalities, I'm sure that there are examples of how people or individuals can contribute to that.
If I may come in,
yes, Dr. Hemlata, please. Yes.
Yeah. Knowing Christ University and the numerous opportunities that students have in expressing their own social responsibilities, I think several projects can be taken up under your service learning programs, where as a person you can make contributions to your service learning, to your own department, taking your own disciplinary training forward. You can build small projects and achieve several things. And of course, I will have to also tell you, building Dr. Bobby was telling us, when you visit these places, it's also, very important that youngsters like you should be able to collect this data, make presentations, dissemination of the needs of people in different forums so that you can take it forward. There are so many ways in which youngsters can be involved at the individual level, small groups of you, the entire department, which is what Christ University is looking forward to.
One more question that is addressed to you. How can departments like media studies work towards sustainable development with media institutions increasingly becoming commercial? So tie-ups are also becoming difficult. So can you give some guidance about this? I think.
Do I take the question?
This person, yes, is looking at how sustainable development and media
studies, the media studies
with commercial
I know the requirements of a huge media house with the kind of markets that they have to cater with. But they also have some of these media houses that are so ethically, dedicated to certain issues, especially the fair skin issue, the women-related issues. Some of the stand that certain media houses are taking has really brought about a change. You people should try to work with these kinds of media houses. There are several. I know that these institutions are market-led, but there is space, especially when we work with issues related to poverty or intolerance. A lot of these that are emerging in society, you should work, but also look at that personal social media space where you create these powerful blogs, when you are able to create awareness, when you form these small online communities with a powerful voice. That is very important for the student community.
I have a personal experience where.
Go ahead.
Where the media studies department is concerned. We had done some work in the Nagapattinam district, and Dr. Rajesh and I think Dr. Padma Kumar, also from the Department of Media Studies in Christ University, were actively involved in bringing out a kind of a monograph on the work which was done, which has been circulated the world over, which is something which we don't have the skills to do. So we do work in the community, but we aren't able to showcase it. And like Dr. Hemlata was saying, I wish we had a blog in those days. I wish we had some social media presence where we could have broadcast that to the wider world. But that's definitely a way in which I think the Department of Media Studies can help. So it's not difficult to imagine the opportunities available to each and every department in Christ University. And I've gone through the list of your departments, and I can think of various examples where the skills which those departments possess, with the guidance of their faculty, the students could definitely be able to contribute.
Okay, I would like to add
Thank you. Yes, I was just going to request our last panelist. So is Mr. Sharma speaking?
Yeah,
Yes, go ahead,
I
please.
really appreciate the person from media department raising that question. The development journalism is fast losing ground because of the pressure the media people are under, because of the commercialization and politicization and sensationalization, etc. But we have sign-offs also. Sign-off becomes very relevant today in the background of SDGs, because he's talking about the ground realities. You need not have to sensationalize, but showcase what has been done in terms of interventions by the government, by NGOs, and maybe by the universities itself, in terms of helping women, helping the peasants, or even some innovative projects that have come up, wherein it is not harming environment, talking about the difficulties people are undergoing. Well, all these requires not just your camera, but also your pen and paper, rather today your writing. A lot of people do read development material, development journalism. So invest on that. Then it will be your contribution to propagate about SDGs, as well as showcasing what is possible if you are intending to talk about development. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Is Miss Kanika, are you okay with that? Is there any more questions that we need to address? Anyone else? Would you like to ask questions about? Yes, go ahead. Is there anyone else who would like to contribute, ask questions?
Moses, there are 2 questions in the Q&A.
Okay, let me just quickly check. All right. I had media institutions done. Okay, we had hosted Sainath and it was great work. After that, I don't see anything else. That's it. I don't.
Sir, it's in the Q&A box. Would you like me to read it out?
Please do. Please be kind.
So the first question is, how do we practically ensure implementation of the SDG quality of education at a college level? This does not entail just conducting research, but socially being involved with the community.
I'd request one of the panelists, anyone, to answer this question, please.
This student is from the education department. She is from which department?
This is a consolidation of students from various departments. I think social work.
Okay, okay. I know, I'm just wanting to know from which background she is asking this question. She's concerned about quality education at higher education levels, is it?
Yes, the implementation at higher education level. I mean, how do we know that quality is really a yardstick that is measured? The word quality,
Okay.
the whole complexity of assessment of what is quality in this in a college.
Obviously, there are standards to which all higher education institutions will have to measure. Yes, yes, please.
I'm really sorry to interrupt you, ma'am, but she's from the psychology department.
Okay, okay, fine, fine. The person who asked the question is Megha Vishnu, is it?
Yes, ma'am, and the question is from Joanna Uday Kumar.
Okay, okay, fine. There are, of course, standards, national and international standards against which we measure the kind of quality standards that are met by institutions. And we will also accept in this forum that there are institutions where quality education is not available to youngsters. But as I said, there are 100 other ways of reaching out to these youngsters, either through several social media groups, through other ways in which you would work towards educating the student community, right? You if you are interested, you can go to any of these institutions and offer your service. I told you, service learning, there are 100 ways in which we can offer support services, and there are institutions who would also appreciate this kind of support coming from organizations such as ours. But there are not just, we now know with COVID and such other things, thousands of students have not been able to access education at all. Now we have to now sit down and see how we come out of this COVID with the inclusion principle in place. That several of our children in higher education themselves have missed out on the education that has been very easily be accessible to students of Christ University. So we have to think of alternate ways. I'm sure you would probably make use of visiting some of these institutions in less privileged areas, and how you would work with the student groups. All of this is possible through, I'm very sure CSA will help you become part of their endeavors and work with the student community to increase the spread of quality education. I know there is no magic wand and we cannot do, bring in major changes, but yes, as some of you are asking questions, as individuals, we certainly can make that small little contribution, all of which will go together and bring about a certain significant change.
Thank you.
You have to
Thank you very
sit
much.
and incubate an idea with the CSA people and then develop these small projects so that it can be taken forward. I'm very sure CSA people will encourage you to do this.
All right, we have one more question. I think there's one more that has to be read out. Could you please be kind to do that?
Megha?
Yes, sir. Sorry. It's a comment from Joanna, actually, not a question. So she suggested that maybe students could be encouraged to work on one SDG in any given semester and be awarded incentives for implementing it. Example, commerce students could work on economic growth, media students could work on peace and justice, etc.
I think everybody has caught up with Dr. Moses's idea that each person should adapt a SDG, and now departments can also. Why not? Sounds excellent. You can sit as a department and decide which of the goals seem more, feasible for the department, keeping in mind the skill sets, and surely you can adapt it and do a lot of work. I'm sure that the university will encourage you to do so.
Mr. Sharma, would you like to add some inputs on this particular aspect also? Mr. Vasudev Sharma? All right. Bobby?
Nothing else to add, Dr. Moses. I mean, I think the example which I gave you is probably something students can think about. I'm sure just a little bit of imagination and every single department in Christ could probably contribute to one or the other of the SDGs.
So thank you so much. Any other questions? I'll take one last question and then we will conclude. One more question? Anyone else? Okay, I'll ask one question to the panelists. Sir, with all these, and ma'am, with all these, great minds and all the educators and all the education that we are, provided throughout our life. So how do we really know whether we, as individuals, as students, as youngsters, as practitioners, as, citizens of India and of the world, are empowered with something known as quality education? How do we know that we have really evolved with quality education and what we know is really the, what needs to be known and what is going to really impart and transfer to the community around us? How do we know that we are really empowered with quality education from wherever we have studied?
Bobby, would you want to?
Well, I think it's a tough question, Dr. Moses, but I think in my mind, it's...
You're also getting qualifications, so yeah.
In my mind, at the end of the day, when you look back and ask yourself, have I contributed in some way to improving, even by in a minuscule amount, one of the SDG elements, and your conscience is clear, and you say that yes, I think I've done something. it would mean that your education, no matter where it came from and whether it was a stated objective of ensuring quality education or not, you would definitely be able to answer that question and say that, whatever I've done in college or school, someone has impacted me, somebody has told me that I should do something for the world around me, and I've done that at the end of the day. So it's more of a question to the conscience, I guess, than anything else.
Dr. Hemlata, any last remarks?
This question that you are asking me, I'm trained as a professional social worker. So the one thing that I would use for measuring, and I always tell my students this is, even if you're able to touch the life of a single human being, that's a big change. That talks about the kind of person that the education that I am giving you has achieved, right? And even a single person. And that makes a lot if you are training a huge group of students, the outcome of what needs, you are an educator, right? And it really helps. If you measure the outcomes and the kind of change agents that our students become, so important.
So thank you so much. So as we continue to go forward and nurture and understand what the concept of partnerships are to nourish our minds and our bodies and our spirits with the concept of what quality and education is all about, we need to be conscious that the complexity of this is beyond anyone's complexions. And we need to move forward with a definitive personalized understanding of what this is all about. As much as society tries to generalize these goals, institutionalize them, it is a personal challenge for us to understand that how quality education can change your mind and nourish your body and also your spirit and your soul, so that you will be in a position then to understand that, yes, I'm truly involved with the quality of life and with education, and I can transform other people. So we need to go forward with that and hold hands as we do that. So thank you very much, distinguished panelists and the Center for Social Action for organizing this very interesting panel discussion on quality education and partnerships for quality education in academia. Thank you very much and have a good rest of the evening. I hand over the session to Dr. Sharon and Dr. Victor Paul.
Thank you so much, sir. With that, we come to the end of our panel discussion. We would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to Dr. Moses, Mr. Vasudev Sharma, Dr. Bobby Joseph, and Dr. Hemlata K for being a part of this very insightful panel discussion. We would also like to thank the faculty members, the volunteers, and the audience for being here. Once again, thank you so much to everyone present, and we hope that you enjoyed the session. I request all the panelists and Moses sir to kindly turn on your video so we can take a group photograph.
Thank you, Dr. Bobby, Mr. Vasu, and Dr. Moses, and Hemlata ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Many thanks. Many thanks, Dr. Victor Paul. Thank you. Dr. Sharon, thank you.
In fact, we were working together on this for a long time, Moses.
Right. Of course, we go a long way back into developing all these programs and the policies and plans. I'm quite astute and aware that Christ University will progressively.
Sorry to interrupt, we are also joined by Father Thomas, who is
Father, good evening, Father.
Father, please. Sorry,
fact,
Father, for the delay in the panel discussion. Father, we would also request you to turn on your video.
Yeah, in fact, Father Thomas Pallitanam, he is from UN. He is from New York.
Right.
Yeah, Father, good morning. Good morning to you.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. Yeah.
It must be early morning for you. Must be early morning for you.
Very good morning,
Dr.
Thomas. Nice to meet you. Yeah. Excellent.
Nice. So, do we begin soon?
We'll have a photo session, I think, students.
Okay. It will become very serious.
Are we going to take a photograph or we done? So,
yes, sir.
I think. Thank you. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Once again, thank you so much to everyone present. We will now move on to our valedictory ceremony. I invite Ronisha to take over.
Thank you, Megha. So good evening to one and all present here. My name is Ranisha Nanjiani, and I will be the MC for this valedictory ceremony. So these past 2 days have been very engaging, and now this is the moment that we've all been waiting for, the announcement of the Best Paper Award for the paper presentation for the Sustainable Development Goals Conference 2020. The theme being Education as a Propelling Force Towards Sustainable Development Goals. To do the honors, I request Dr. Victor Paul, the Director of CSA, to announce the best papers of each track.
Thank you. Respected Father Thomas and the panelists and dear students, my coordinators. For track 1, the best paper is Impact of STEM Gap on Gender Disparity in Organizations, Role of Education in Narrowing the Gap. By Amita KT, Rakshita S, and Srinidhi MB. Congratulations. And track 2, Advocating for Quality Education by proposing the inclusion of sex education in the existing India curriculum. Simran Sharma, Ananya Agrawal, and Palak Misra. Congratulations. And for track 3, An Unlikely Trinity, the Sphere of Cross Influence Among Language, Economics, and Gender Equality by Parvati Sailesh, Ritvika P. Congratulations to the last track, track 4, Approaches Towards Implementing Sustainable Development, ESD, in Classrooms by Anthony Kenneth. So congratulations to all of you. Thank you. Ashwini? Yeah, Roshina, yeah.
I would like to congratulate each and every participant. Throughout these days of the event, we noticed the hard work and dedication put forth by all of you, and we truly appreciate it. We have amongst us here today Reverend Father Thomas, UN representative of Celestian Missions Incorporated. I would now like to welcome Father to deliver the valedictory address.
So, good evening and good afternoon and good morning. Good morning from here in New York, rather cold. Congratulations to all of you for this eventful 2 days UN Sustainable Development Conference 2020 with the theme Education as a Propelling Force Towards Sustainable Development. And earlier on 14th of October, I was privileged to orient the students on sustainable goals, global to local, and orientation on SDGs and related UN mechanisms. Thank you, Dr. Victor Paul, Director, Center for Social Action, Dr. Sharon Valamurthy. And congratulations to all those. I know there are so many names and I'm unable to record them for all the great papers that you presented. 21 papers on the first day and 21 papers again on the second day, encompassing a wide range of subjects. Going through the brochure, I could see your efforts at plumbing the depth and sketching the breadth of those subjects, from policy to praxis, from universal primary education to STEM education, from quality education to sustainable development, from gender justice to education to menstrual health, yes, from nuclear energy to consumption, conservation, and renewable and sustainable energy. You have explored the intersection of education, equity, justice, gender, corporate social responsibility, name it, and you have covered them all. So as you move on with life, you will deepen these ideas and they will inform and shape your future. And I wish you the best for all that lies before you. Having said that, I would like to share some deep concerns I have for our shared future as individuals and as citizens of our dear country. Coming from New York and someone working at the UN to represent young people's aspirations, you would have expected from me a more macro response to the 2 days seminar that you had, conference you had on sustainable development. But I would like to address issues closer home. And taking a clue from what Dr. Moses asked about the quality education, how do we understand whether we did have received quality education? And the response from Dr. Bobby and Dr. Amelida seems to be right on spot on the things that I want to share right now. Let me put it like this. There is a battle for the soul of India. And that battle must be won in the hallowed precincts of our educational institutes. Once more, I repeat, there is a battle for the soul of India. In 1975, as a student at Christopher College, Krishnarajapuram, the other side of Rice College, is a college of theology in Bangalore. And a school day friend of mine, Tom Jones by name, now settled down, I guess, in London. And incidentally, the brother of the present finance minister of Kerala, Thomas Isaac, came to pay me a visit. It was after many years of leaving school. He asked me about our schedule during the studies we have there and explained to him what nature of our studies. And then I shared with him that after the study hours, college hours, we go to the neighboring villages, like I think the Center for Social Action you do, and try to share the life of the poor around us. Many of them are quarry workers, indentured workers, almost like modern slavery. And then he told me, Thomas, why do you waste your time? Let each one take care of themselves. You should be going on getting along with your life. His words sounded like jarring notes in an otherwise melodious symphony of altruistic, selfless humaneness that existed on campuses across the nation. None of you students were born then, I guess. It was during the churning that was taking place across the campuses post the Navadharman movement led by Jayaprakash Narayan. Today, those sentiments seems to be perfectly in vibe with the culture that exists in so many of our campuses. Today, more than any time in the history of mankind, we are more educated. There are more literates across the globe, more boys and girls who have gone through primary, secondary, tertiary, technical, and professional education. Education was always thought to be a great leveler. But we realize that education itself has become the greatest barrier to equality. Hasn't it become a commodity in the market, available to the highest bidder? Take the time of COVID right now. I'm sure all of you would have heard stories of poor students who are unable to access education. Lily, a girl studying in the 10th standard, far away, I'm in New York and she is in Andhra Pradesh, calls me up 2 days back saying that she's in 10th, hardly 2 more months of studies left, unable to attend school where at that time she was in a hostel, and that hostel is closed, and the school management is asking her to follow education online when she has to share her only smartphone with her brother who is also doing her college studies. And there are numerous stories like this, some very tragic, taking life, committing suicide because they are unable to access education. One second, I am having a small technical problem. I'm getting back. Inequality has only grown over the years. Oxfam Inequality Report 2020 has these points for us to consider. The world's richest 1% have more than twice as much wealth as 6.9 billion people, meaning almost half of humanity lives on less than $5.5 a day. Only 4 cents in every dollar of tax revenue comes from the wealthy. Today, 258 million children, 1 out of every 5, will not be allowed to go to school. Every day, 10,000 people die because they lack access to affordable health care. Men own 50% more of the world's wealth than women. And the 22 richest men have more wealth than all the women in Africa. This pandemic has only exacerbated the situation. And here in America, 40 million Americans filed for unemployment during the pandemic. But billionaires saw their net worth increase by half a trillion dollars. And closer home to you, on August 8, 2020, Mukesh Ambani became the 4th richest man in the world. The same day, a laborer in Madhya Pradesh who had lost his job after the coronavirus-induced lockdown killed himself and his 3 daughters by tying the girls to his waist and jumping into the well. Friends, battle for the soul of India can only be won an education that promotes equality and justice. Recall the preamble to our Constitution. We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic and to secure to all its citizens and the rest of it. That socialist fabric, our sacred constitutional values is being torn asunder. Remember the time when you first entered the portals of an education institute as a kindergarten student? As you sat side by side in the classroom, you were probably not aware if you were a boy or a girl, in a sense. You wore shorts and skirts because your mother put that on you. Not because you understood as a girl you had to wear a skirt and a boy wear the shorts. Forget about your awareness of being a Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Jain, or a non-believer. You celebrated differences. Diversity was beauty. But as we pass through the portals of our Vidya Alaya, and that's the beautiful word that we have in our language, in our culture, not school, Vidya Alaya, temple of knowledge, a sacred space, we come to recognize our identity. I'm a Hindu, I'm a Christian, a Muslim, a Brahmin, a Vaisya, a Reddy, a Naidu, a Nambiar, a Nair. Understanding and appreciating our identity is an integral process of our education, our growing up. Yes. But when we were children, we celebrated those differences. But as we grew up, they become for us reasons for excluding, discriminating, othering. Article 51A, the fundamental duties, determines us, among others, promote harmony and the spirit of common brotherhood amongst all the people in India, transcending religions, linguistic, and regional or sectoral diversities. Yes, the battle for the soul of India can only be won by an education that will not let us give up our capacity to celebrate differences. Day by day, the secular values of our Constitution are being constantly battered by rising communalism, intolerance, religious fundamentalism, and othering of those who question and dissent. September 30th, 2 a.m. hours of the morning, will always be remembered for its horror and inhumanity. Yes, the day and time when Hathras' rape victim was incinerated almost like biomedical waste, not by some sadist rapist, but under the state order, executed by police, supervised by no less a person as and than an IAS officer. I detest to pronounce his name. IAS officers are supposed to be our brightest and the best, who had the access to the best quality education available in our country. Remember UP, Bihar, along Delhi, gives us the highest number of civil service officers year after year. How is it that they lack the courage of their convictions and are willing to be to the bidding of their political masters? Countless number of our eminent human rights defenders, academics, students, selfless social activists languishing in jail on trumped charges, booked under stringent yet obsolete colonial laws and of sedition and draconian laws like Unlawful Activities Prevention Act. Don't understand Sami, Sudha Bharadwaj, Varavara Rao, and 13 others charge sheeted under the UPA for alleged involvement in the Bhima Karagan riot. Stan suffers from severe Parkinson's disease. He is unable to hold a glass and satiate his thirst. NIA gets 20 days to respond to his request for a straw to sip water. And a man called Arnab Goswami gets an urgent overnight hearing and is granted interim bail in a case of documented abetment of suicide. Because, in the words of Chandrachud, personal freedom, in his case, seems to be only in Arnab's, is supreme. So spoke the Supreme Court. Mindless of the lakhs of people in our jails, waiting under trials, waiting for their much weird freedom. Battle for the soul of India can only be won if our education gives us the spine to stand up to insolent might and speak truth to power. And such educated citizens here in this country, one of the largest democracies in the world, are so hard to find. And so, despite 122 million unemployed, an economy shrinking by 24%, millions of migrants forced to trek thousands of miles to the comparative safety of their native villages, rising poverty, country occupying the 94th slot on the hunger index, falling 51 places on the democracy index, 142 on the freedom of press index. Communal politics can catapult one to power. Bihar election results are fresh in our memory. Yes, indeed, there is a battle for the soul of India. And that battle can only be won by reappropriating the meaning of education. SDG 4.7, a target which if anyone takes it seriously, can give us some pointers as to how to reappropriate the meaning of education. Unfortunately, our country, even after 5 years of launching Agenda 20, the Sustainable Development Goals, and tabling voluntary national reviews in 2017, I myself presented at the UN the Civil Society Alternate Report, and also last year in 2019, is yet to develop indicators for that target. I would ask you to go Google for the targets or indicators for SDG 4.7, and you will find that yet to be developed. And that, I would think, is not by neglect or by chance, more by design. SDG 4.7 speaks of human rights education, global citizenship, communal harmony, and appreciation for diversity. Universal periodic review, mandatory, so every 4.5 years. Review 2 and 3 called upon India to formulate a comprehensive plan for human rights education. India is yet to come up with one. Fortunately, there have been a few Kannan Gopinathans, IPS officers like Abdul Rahman, who have had the courage to stand up for their convictions. There have been students like Ayesha Renna and Ledida Sakun, images of youth brimming with courage and idealism in the face of brutality of the Delhi police, who are willing to cry aloud, "The emperor has no clothes." They are on a pilgrimage to redeem the soul of India. For you and for me, the campus placements come. If they come for them, that would be a bonus. When a ship is sinking, the manager rearranges shifting tables, chairs, and tableware. A leader tells you to jump off the ship. Education, my dear friends, help us to decide if we want to be a manager or a leader. So much of what we spoke can be negotiated or conversations were around being a manager. It's good to take a moment to consider if these events in any way tug at your conscience, challenging you to respond in one way or the other. As social activists, I wish you not an education that gives you all the answers, but an education that empowers you to ask the right questions and the spine to stand up and ask them till you get the answers. During the Arab Spring, I remember reading an article. The article, the author, said that the Arab Spring was an inshallah to mashallah moment. And what does that mean? Inshallah means if God wills it. Mashallah means not if God wills it, but that God does will it. It's that confidence that can give you the courage and the determination to work for another world that is possible. It will happen. It's up to each one of us to join that great pilgrimage, a pilgrimage where no one will be left behind, and the UN's renewed call, Build Back Better, will become a reality. Let me conclude with Subrata Bakchi's blind mother's last words to him. Go kiss the world. Thank you and wish you well.
Thank you, Father Thomas, for such a wonderful speech. It was certainly very insightful. Now let's take a flashback of the event through a wrap report by student overall representatives Rahul and Ashwini.
CSA has been a catalyst in promoting the Sustainable Development Goals 2030. The vision, mission, and goal of the organization align with the 70 UNSDG goals. The idea to commemorate this collaboration was envisaged by our Pro VC, Father Jose, who has been a constant support of our ventures. The conference is the celebration of our achievements in implementing SDGs. The successful conduct of this conference owes to a wonderful set of volunteers who've been working alongside coordinators on designing the entire structure. Consistent effort for more than a month has been devoted to the success of this two-day event. Volunteers were allocated to 6 committees, namely logistics, PR, panel discussion, paper presentation, poster presentation, and design. From sending out invites, shortlisting candidates, inviting judges and panelists, to formatting the rubrics, volunteers had managed to smoothly move the whole planning process to the virtual domain. Our coordinators were also fully engaged in the process of facilitating the volunteers in approvals and procedures at the faculty level. We believe that our endeavor to deliver constructive experience. Our day one's wrap-up started with the inaugural ceremony presided by Pro Vice Chancellor Father Jose and Chief Guest Job Zakaria, who was the UNICEF Chief officer for Chhattisgarh. Both guests had echoed the importance of the theme of the conference, education as a propelling force, SDG. Job Zakaria had shared his insights on how education becomes a foundational SDG, the challenges it faces, and how each one can contribute. The session was followed by a poster presentation by volunteers on CSA's intervention towards SDG goals 4, 5, 6, 7, and 17. The ceremony was followed by a paper presentation. Invites were sent for submission of papers on October 5, and the shortlisted candidates had to present their papers as the final stage. Day 1 had 2 sessions, Track 1 and Track 2. Track 1 was held from 11 a.m. The judges for the event were Dr. Maya and Dr. Sharon Valedictory. The event had 18 panelists and 62 attendees. A total of 10 papers were presented, which revolved around the themes of the role of education in diminishing taboos and promoting gender equality. Track 2 was held from 3 p.m. The event was witnessed by 14 panelists and 40 attendees and was chaired by Dr. Arul and Mr. Mithul. The chairs made the observation that papers were more plan-oriented and encouraged participants to proceed and develop on their concepts and research questions. In overall, papers revolved around the themes of school education and structuring of the curriculum. Day 1 saw an impressive turnout who had been a patient audience in spite of the time lapses. Presenters had voiced their appreciation for a smooth and organized session. Now to take up Day 2's wrap-up, I invite Ashwini to take over.
The day 2 commenced with Track 3 of paper presentation series. The event started from 9:30 and extended till 12:30 p.m. The session was witnessed by 47 attendees and 16 panelists. The chairs were Dr. Suja John from BGR campus and Dr. Rajiv. The track became a platform for cross-disciplinary ideas such as linguistic relativity, disparity in the wages of different genders, lives of sanitation workers post and pre-lockdown, and introducing personal finance in school education. The presenters took the audience through the problem and concluding with possible solution to eliminate it from society. The Track 4 of the paper presentation series was scheduled from 12:30 p.m. to 3 p.m. The session was attended by 36 participants and 14 panelists. The judges for the track were Dr. Reema Shirian and Dr. Reshma Jacob. The session revolved around education and paving importance on sensitive and stigmatized topics like menstruation, sex education, etc. The chairs found it quite interesting that the time in regards to the time and effort put by the researchers in their methodology, interdisciplinary approaches, and references. The panel discussion started at 4:05 p.m. with 11 panelists and 82 attendees. Dr. Moses Satralkar kick-started the event by emphasizing the need for inculcating SDGs in one's life at a personal level. Dr. Vasudev Sharma, one of the panel members, had eloquently described how SDGs are a way of redefining synergy. Dr. Bobby Joseph blazed the trail about improvement of quality of education with the possibility of achievement of sustainable education. He also limelighted healthcare intervention and quoted words of appreciation for the CSA team. Further discussion was carried out by Dr. Hemlata K, factoring certain objective on why quality and higher education institutes play an important role in the achievement of SDGs. The session was concluded with a Q&A. Christites were curious to understand how at their department level and at personal levels could implement SDGs and achieve the given goals. It was followed by the valedictory session with the announcement of best paper awardees for each track and also the valedictory address by Father Thomas Palatanam, the Salesian representative of the event board. I would now like to conclude the report wrap-up for the conference. I would like to hand over the session back to the moderators. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul and Ashwini, for the wrap report. Next with us, we have Dr. Sharon Valamarthi to conclude the event by giving the vote of thanks.
Good evening. It gives me immense pleasure to deliver vote of thanks on the valedictory ceremony of SDG Conference 2020. On behalf of the entire CSA family, I would like to thank management, Christ deemed to be University, for giving us an opportunity to organize this event. My sincere thanks to Father Thomas Palithanam, Salesian representative to the United Nations, for delivering the valedictory address. Thank you, Father, for accepting our invite and being with us today. We look forward for more meaningful interactions and collaborations with you. Your words have always enlightened and encouraged us to move forward in our initiatives. A warm thanks to Dr. Job Zachariah, Chief of UNICEF Chhattisgarh, for delivering keynote address at the inaugural ceremony of the conference. Heartfelt thanks to Father Joe Sisi, our Pro Vice Chancellor, for his inaugural address and constant support in all our initiatives at CSA. We are privileged to work under great leadership of Dr. Victor Paul, sir, the director of CSA. Thank you, sir, for always being there time in, time out, and giving us the needed encouragement and support to go ahead with all our initiatives. A big thank you to all the session chairs of the track 1, 2, 3, and 4 paper presentations, Dr. Maya, Mr. Mithul, Dr. Arul, Dr. Sujat John, Dr. Rajiv, Dr. Reena Cherian, and Dr. Reshma Jacob, without whose support the paper presentation would not have been possible. Heartfelt thanks to the panelists, Mr. Vasudev Sharma, Executive Director and Trustee, Child Rights Trust, Dr. Bobby Joseph, Professor and Head, St. John's Medical College, Dr. Hemalata, Associate Professor, Sociology and Social Work, and our moderator, Dr. Moses, Academic Dean, Global Resilience University, for those enlightening words to achieve partnership in our SDGs. I'd like to acknowledge the hard work of all the paper presenters for the two-day conference. Your research contributions has been immense and has added more meaning to our learning and has been very engaging in the two-day conference. Congratulations to all the Best Paper Award winners. I place on record my sincere thanks to all the faculty coordinators of CSA for always being there to share responsibility and shoulder responsibility with me. The support has been really helpful in conduct of this event. My special thanks to CSA staff members for their presence and their behind scene working towards achieving the aims and ambitions and contributing towards CSA. My sincere thanks to student leaders, poster committee, paper committee, panel committee, logistic committee, design committee, the MCs for the two-day event, and all the student volunteer of CSA who put their heart and soul to conduct these two-day events. Thank you all for your hard work and passion. This shows that you are working to create a better society to live for the upcoming generation. Thank you all once again for your presence and your participation. I remain.
Thank you, Valarmati ma'am. In fact, a special thanks to the coordinators, all our coordinators, especially to you, Valarmati ma'am, and Reshma ma'am, and Jyoti Thomas from Kengeri campus, and Suja John from Bandagatta campus, and also all the MCs and overall heads. I'm not taking their names here. I think many of them worked hard, and also Activity Center, Drishti, Media and Communication, Prayatna, and Matram team. All of them, a big thank you to all to make this program a successful event. And I'm sure that the insight that we got from these 2 days discussions will help us to work together towards achieving the goal of SDGs. Thank you very much. Thank you all the participants. Thank you. MC to conclude.
Yes. Ronisha, are you there?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here. Well, with this, we come to an end, and thank you all for joining.
Thank you all. So I think